He won it swimming a 3-inch plastic grub. That's a problem for me.
Time for the Angler Within podcast with Roy Bilby.
Hey, JD, I've missed talking with you.
I've missed you too. It's nice to be missed. It's better.
Yeah.
It's better than having you go, oh, great, I got to talk to JD tonight.
No, it's never, ever like that. But a lot has happened since our last podcast. And the first thing I want to put out to everybody, all our faithful listeners, and we thank them for that. The I have been on the phone, on the computer, emailing, texting, trying to get the dates nailed down for this year's Spring Fishing Classic at Bass Pro Shops. It's their biggest sale of the entire year. I've been trying to get those dates locked down, and I could not get a direct answer from anybody because there's a sportsman show up in Wells, New York that wanted me for their event, and they it's March 7th, and it turns out, yes, that is the very first weekend of the classic. And Bass Pro being my number one sponsor, I I've got loyalty to them. I have, if they call, I got to be there. And they understood that up in Wells, but that's a show I love to do. They really wanted me there, and I'm just not able to do it this year, but I will be at Bass Pro Shops. Wow, my voice cut out.
I
But I
thought you
will
got.
be at
I thought you got choked up.
no,
I thought you were
no,
crying already. I was like, oh man, he's really upset
no,
about this.
no, the air went out of my lungs. It's that, and I know you heard my voice disappear, so I will be at Bass Pro Shops on that weekend, and what I wanna do is put out my schedule because I know I've had people come to the Spring Fishing Classic because they heard me announce it on the podcast. So here goes. And I've got 9 appearances all over the Northeast. So this is a whirlwind schedule for me, but I love it. Uh if you're near the Clifton Park, New York store, I will be there Thursday, March 5th. Now that is a members only night, and they usually run from 5 to 9 p.m. till the store closes, but you have to be a club member to get in the door. Nobody else is allowed in. So if you haven't joined the club yet and gotten your club card, and that's a deal, you get deals that regular customers don't get. You accumulate points and you basically get free gear. So if you're going to go to Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's and buy your outdoor gear anyway, you're getting more for less than everybody else if you join the club. So why wouldn't you do it? I'm a member, uh, have been since they started it. And again, that's a members only night. That's a Thursday evening, 5 to 9. They asked me to be there for that. They're having all kinds of food and events for the customers that are club card members. And then the very next day, Friday the 6th, I'll be there for most of the day doing my deal, tank demos, talking with customers, photo ops, all that kind of stuff. But the very next 2 days, that first weekend, the 7th and 8th, I will be in Bridgeport, Connecticut, doing the same work. So I've made a lot of friends out in Bridgeport. Uh, so if you're going to be near the Bridgeport, Connecticut store, that first weekend, March 7th and 8th, I will be in the store both days.
So, what are they saying about us coming in to do our Anglerversary?
I'm going to talk to them in the Clifton Park and the Utica stores, the two closest ones for you, uh, and see if they're open to that again. So I gotta wait and see. and I will get a hold of them as soon as I've got multiple appearances in both stores, so I'll be working the phones on that. So I'll get us in if I can.
You should get me in as your VIP guest for the club night so I can get in on some of these snacks.
You're not a club member?
I am not a club member. That's the credit card, right?
It is.
Yeah, no. No.
Well, here's the thing. I'm different. I'm not your average guy when it comes to credit
You're not
cards.
your average guy on anything. Let us just be clear. No, if someone asked, can you tell me something about Roy Bilby? What I wouldn't say, Roy, is that you're an average guy. You're not an
Well,
average guy. But
that can be good and that can be bad.
hey, you know what I think of when I think of an average guy? Not Roy
Not
Bilby.
Roy.
Not Roy.
I have had a credit card since I was in my early 20s because they made it mandatory as a type of identification back then. You couldn't do anything without one. So I got one, but I got one that paid me cash back. And that's what the club card does. The secret is don't don't do a minimum payment. I have never carried a balance, okay? I don't care if the credit card is bill is $3 or $3,003. I know what I have to spend and I don't overspend. I've never paid 1 cent of interest on any credit card I've ever had, ever
Well,
in my life.
well, thank you, Dave Ramsey. Look at this guy.
But I've made a lot of money, uh, with the cash back and the rewards balances I get. Every year, I'm getting a couple $100 in cash back, and we put it in an envelope, my wife and I. We wanna go out to dinner, we use what we call other people's money. That's everybody who's paying interest on their credit cards. So, but I've never paid 1 cent of interest on the credit card. I use it as a convenience, and then I write a check every month, and every year that cash back builds up, and I've over the years, JD, I've pocketed thousands and thousands of dollars in free money just because I paid up every month without paying any interest. The credit card has never cost me any money, but it's paid me thousands to use it because of the way I approach it, which is not the way the average person does it. That's why credit card companies are a business.
I think
So
average consumer is the way to phrase that. The average consumer does it
there you go.
because that is consumer debt.
Yeah. Yep. Well, getting back to my
Now that you've totally made everyone who makes a minimum monthly payment feel like trash, let's get into it.
let me let me explain why my mind works the way it does with credit cards. And this goes back to when I was 16 years old. Wanted a motorcycle. My buddy was a couple years younger than me. He wanted a motorcycle. We both found I wanted a brand new one. I wanted a 1975 Yamaha DT 175B. It was an enduro, on road, off road, but that's what I wanted. He was looking at a Yamaha 250, a used one. And my plan was, okay, I was a junior in high school. I was going to work the whole summer for my dad, who was a mason contractor, made his living with his hands. I spent the whole summer working for him and made the command decision. I never wanted to work as hard as my father did to make a living. And then I went and did the exact same thing doing heavy construction.
One.
Let me let me explain why my mind works the way it does with credit cards. And this goes back to when I was 16 years old. Wanted a motorcycle. My buddy was a couple years younger than me. He wanted a motorcycle. We both found I wanted a brand new one. I wanted a 1975 Yamaha DT 175B. It was an enduro, on road, off road, but that's what I wanted. He was looking at a Yamaha 250, a used one. And my plan was, okay, I was a junior in high school. I was going to work the whole summer for my dad, who was a mason contractor, made his living with his hands. I spent the whole summer working for him and made the command decision. I never wanted to work as hard as my father did to make a living. And then I went and did the exact same thing, doing heavy construction for 20 years. But for me, that's where the money was. And I learned to trade. But my buddy, at the first week of summer, he's riding around on a motorcycle. I'm like, "How how did you get the money for that? I thought you were gonna work all summer like me." He said, "I am, but I took out a bank loan so I could have the motorcycle now." And I went, "Huh, how about that?" I'd never considered that. I was going to get it at the end of the summer. So I went to the bank, 16 years old, and took out a bank loan. This motorcycle, it's going to kill people. Back in 1975, a brand new DT 175B Enduro on road, off road cost $695. Good grief. But I took out a loan for it, and I'm always a numbers guy. I was a numbers guy back then. Okay. And I got my payment book, my little 12 payment slips, and I looked at the amount on it. And my dad said, "Well, now, you know, I'll co-sign for you, but you've got to make those payments, which means you're going to not be saving your money. You're going to be putting it towards that every week. You understand?" I did. Yes, sir. Yes, I will. So I added up those pay all 12 payments, and they came out to 700, little over $720. And I went to the bank. This is why my mind
Oh
works like
no.
this with the credit cards. I went to the bank, and I said, 16-year-old kid sits down in the office across from the bank president. And I said, "You made a mistake." And he said, "Really? How's that?" I said, "Well, I borrowed $695." He said, "That's correct." I said, "Well, I added up all these payments and they come out, you're wrong. They come out to $723." He goes, "Well, that's called interest, Roy. That's how we make money." I said, "But I'm paying back more than I borrowed. I should only be paying 695 back." He goes, "No." He said, "Look, this is a business like anything else. I got bills to pay. I got to pay my employees. I got a electric bill. I got water. I got heat. I got to keep this thing running. Yes, you borrow our money, but you pay us to use our money so you can have what you want right now." And I went, "Oh." And it just, I thought I was only gonna pay back 695, and so it cost me money to borrow that, which made a huge impression on me at that age. And he said, "You got the motorcycle now, you got what you wanted, but it's gonna cost you to use our money." And I walked out shaking my head going, "Well, I'm never doing this again." And I'll tell you what, that was at 16 years old. I paid that off. And no matter what loan I took out for a car, a truck, another vehicle, a boat, whatever, I never carried a single one all the way through. I always paid them off early to knock off interest. I've had 3 mortgages, never took any full term. I saved tens of thousands of dollars paying off mortgages in half the time by making double principal payments. That's just the way my mind works. So with a credit card, I couldn't see paying any interest at all because some of them are like 18%, 22%. It's insane and should be illegal, but that's how they stay in business. But that's why my mind works the way it does, because I learned at the age of 16 to hate the word interest because it costs me more than it should, in my opinion. And hence, that's why I make money off of credit cards without them costing me a penny.
Gotcha. Good job, Roy.
That's the truth.
Cha-ching.
Now people will understand why my mind works the way it does.
It's all right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So the second weekend, which is the weekend of the 14th and 15th, on the 13th, Friday the 13th, I will be in Utica, New York. I will have talked to them beforehand
So we're
about
probably
us
going to be over
possibly
there
coming
then.
in.
We'll probably go there then. But that is also the weekend I'm leaving for South Carolina. So if we do
Okay.
it, we're going to have to record it on Friday.
I'm doing Utica on Friday the 13th and then moving to Auburn, New York for Saturday and Sunday, the 14th and 15th. That's when I'll be in Auburn, New York.
All right. So
And then the final weekend, I will be back in Clifton Park, New York on Saturday the 21st and back in Utica, New York on Sunday the 22nd. And those will be full days in the store, probably doing 4 tank demos each day, noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 3 o'clock. So if you've never seen a tank demo, if you've never got to see how your lures work underwater and how the fish respond to them, check it out. If you're near one of these stores on those dates, I'll be there. Walk up, introduce yourself, please. Tell me you listen to the podcast, and we'll instantly be best friends. I can promise you that. So I will talk to the managers in the stores, JD, and see if I can get us in one of those, so we can do a Angliversary podcast once again. Because that was a blast.
yeah, it was a good time.
That was an absolute blast. Now, I have completed my journal review for last year, 2025. Let me tell you what a phenomenal year that was for me. 1,678 bass caught and released in 2025. Now that's 124 entries in the journal. Now, not all of those were directed specifically towards bass. I mean, there's a lot of when I'm ice fishing in the winter, I'm targeting panfish for the table. When I hit my perch runs and bluegill and crappie runs in the spring and early summer, I'm targeting panfish for the table. Bass in those excursions are merely bycatch, but I focus on bass probably May through the end of the year, depending on what lake I'm going to, what boat I got, and what gear I'm carrying. But I had a phenomenal year that brought my total up to 38,694 bass costs and what that equates to for me being a numbers guy, I now only need, well, starting January 1st, I only needed 306 to break 39,000 and I'm already into the 20s just with what I've caught ice fishing. So I expect sometime mid-spring I'll hit that mark and hit 39,000, and if things go the way I anticipate, and this is chasing those numbers like my life depends on it. I hopefully expect to, good Lord willing, break 40,000 sometime in October, probably towards the end of October this year. So we'll see. Hang on for that ride. I will absolutely keep everybody posted. And again, that journal, those numbers, those ridiculous numbers, and that trust me, those are absurd numbers to me, and I've been there for every one of them, for every single fish. I never imagined in my wildest dreams that counting those fish would take on the life of its own that it has, and the numbers would get so big that so many people would know about it. So many outdoor writers would take an interest in documenting that it would create in all the national sponsorships I've got now, the podcast we're doing, all these doors have opened because a small town kid started counting his fish. If people had told me 10 years ago I would be doing seminars and, representing 4 national brands and getting paid very good to do it and having a podcast and doing all this stuff for fishing, I would have laughed at them and said, "Yeah, in my wildest dreams." But it's taken on a life of its own, and I am loving this ride and hanging on for dear life and anxious to see where it goes next. And you, my good friend, opened the door to this podcast, and I cannot thank you enough for that because this has been an incredibly enjoyable ride. And as far as I'm concerned, and hope we're just getting started.
Yeah. So what are we talking about today, sir?
Well, I want to talk about a tournament that's going to be a problem for me that they just completed a national event because it exposed one of my best kept secrets that I've been using for decades because everybody else has forgotten about it. And now it just got put in the national spotlight. And what I'm talking about is the Bassmaster Elite Series kicked off last week. They just concluded it 4 days on Lake Gunnersville. They had never been there in February. That's always later on in the schedule. And this was very much a pre spawn event. Good grief, almost a winter event when they got there. This was during this cold Arctic blast that we just experienced and went all the way down to the south. Gunnersville, which is just a phenomenal fishery in Alabama, their coves and bays when they got there for practice were frozen. They couldn't get into the spots that half the field wanted to fish because they were covered with ice. What they had a clip on Bassmaster, and people who know the Elite Series guy, there's a guy, Seth Fighter. He's a northern guy, and he's very popular with the fans. He's an incredible fisherman who's had one heck of an Elite Series career. AOY champion a few years back. He's just a phenomenal fisherman, but he's one of us. He's from the Great White North up here. And he called the tournament director, Lisa Talmadge, and said, I just got a question. He said, and then they had a video clip on this, and it was a gag he did mostly. But he said, "I just want to know if it's legal for us to get out of the boat during the tournament and cut a hole in the ice and jig for our fish. Can we ice fish for them? Is that legal in this tournament?" And she said, "No, you can't leave the boat." And a lot of guys got a chuckle over that, but that was the reality that they had video clips of these boats working their way into these like an icebreaker, breaking the ice as they went back into these coves. I mean, that's just unheard of down there. The first morning of the tournament, the air temps were in the 20s. Boats were frozen to trailers. Live well lids were frozen shut. It was a tough time. The problem I had with it, the lead, flip flopped every single day. The guy who came out on top, I believe he was in seventh place the third day, and he charged and took the lead. Hank Cherry, a two-time Bassmasters Classic champion. This was his first Elite Series regular season victory, but he won it swimming a 3-inch plastic grub. That's a problem for me because as well as many of our listeners, that Zoom Fat Albert 5-inch grub and that Bass Pro Shops XPS grub, 4-inch and 5-inch, they have been my secret weapon for years because nobody else throws it. And it's something that fish still react to, as Hank Cherry proved, and they still react to it. It still catches fish, and they're not shell shocked by it. They're not jaded to it because they never see it. And that's a problem because everybody's going to be throwing it again now. That's what happens when somebody wins an Elite Series tournament. Whatever bait it was won on, everybody sells out of them. I mean, fast. Companies are stocking up. They're already disappearing from tag. I read a blog the other day. They go in, the store only had 4 packs left. So I grabbed all 4. People are going to be throwing that like crazy. And it's probably not going to be as effective for me this year. So I'm going to have to deal with that. But that was my reaction when they let out of the bat, what he caught his fish on. I went, oh no. That's a lot of people are going to be looking at throwing that again. That's a big problem for me because it was one of my little dirty little secret weapons that always puts fish in the boat for me and good ones. I mean, you've seen me use that on your lake. I use it on the rivers and creeks all the time. It is a mainstay for me. The thing is, I use it for smallmouth. He was catching largemouth with it. Doesn't make any difference. People are going to be throwing it again this year. So I will have to deal with that. That's just a little private battle for me. But on another front, with that cold snap, I was in my basement and I finished up my kayak project. It's
Oh,
it's done.
send me let's do that photo. Send me a picture of your kayak project for this week's podcast photo for the thumbnail.
I'll have to go out and do that. It's out of the basement now. It's in one of my storage buildings. But I tell you what, once I had it all done, I kind of stepped back and smiled and went, I probably still won't enjoy fishing out of it, but
Why?
okay, I've wondered about that, JD, and I think I figured it out. Most people, I mean, people hear I have 5 boats, they're like, 5? How many can you use at once? That's not the way I look at it. I look at it the way that it doesn't matter if it's a little tiny stream or creek or a mud puddle or Lake Champlain. I've got a boat that is the right size for any body of water out there, so I'm not overgunned or undergunned. That's why I have 5. They're all different sizes, and I fish a lot of different types of fisheries. But that's the thing. I've always fished from a boat since I can remember. I don't walk the bank. I don't relegate myself to that because even if it's a small body of water from a boat, your angles improve exponentially and you can be way more effective in your approach and presentation if you have a boat and you have that mobility. If you're on the bank, there's areas you can't get to. With a boat, with a kayak, everything is accessible. So I've always had that accessibility. Most people, at least a lot of people that I've talked to, never were able to get a boat, but they can get a kayak. So now they've got that mobility. So by getting a kayak now, I've already got 5 boats and everything, you know, to up to my tournament rig. I've never mobility, accessibility has never been an issue for me. But going from a boat, my full-blown tournament rig and my tracker and my other smaller boats, I've always had all kinds of room. Every boat I got, I can stand up, walk around, move back and forth, and carry all my way too much gear that I
So
carry
it's
and all
gonna
my
bother you to sit?
sitting, yeah, with my legs straight out and not being able to get up and move around. I feel most people, when they get a kayak, because they've never had a boat, they feel, I don't know, for lack of a better word, empowered because now they've got accessibility. Okay. When I get into a kayak out of any of my other boats, I feel handicapped because I I still have the accessibility. Oh yeah, way better than being stuck on a bank while everybody else is out there competing in their kayaks. Yeah, from that standpoint, yes. But from what I'm used to, I feel severely handicapped because I have the accessibility, but within the craft, I don't have the mobility that I'm used to having. So, you understand that? Am I explaining that good enough? I mean, I'm going backwards from my perspective. That's why I'm having a problem with the kayak because I have accessibility, but my mobility within the craft is severely limited compared to what I'm used to. Don't
Shut
feel
up.
sorry for me.
Are you I don't. I don't you just sat there and wasted all of that explanation because I didn't feel the least bit of sympathy for you.
Yeah,
No.
don't feel sorry for
Oh,
me who's got 5 boats
this
and a
isn't
kayak.
this isn't my Mercules. So
No, it's
I guess I'll be the same as everyone else
it's
with
my
this one.
paddleys. No, I won't because I don't have a pedal kayak. I have a paddle kayak.
That was your choice.
Yeah, because I didn't wanna spend any money on something I knew I wouldn't enjoy using. But,
Listen to you did it just for the classic up at Crumhorn.
yeah,
So you could even up. No more special exceptions for Roy and
no
his
more special
John boat.
pass. Okay, you can use a rowboat just this one time. Well, we'll see if it makes a difference, but yeah,
I
I'll
bet you
take
end up liking it more than you think.
I I you know
It
what?
isn't
I
like it isn't
truly
like you're not sitting in a comfortable position on that.
right. I truly hope so. I truly hope I go, "You know what? This isn't that bad." That's what I'm hoping.
But when everybody else pedals past you out there,
Yeah. Hey!
don't feel don't
Level the
feel
playing field.
don't feel less than.
Just use one foot and paddle, okay? Come on, give me a break.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll send you a picture. It'll be a picture with it in the shed, but it'll be a picture.
Please
I
do.
I I don't think I got any other pictures of it. But, I stepped back and I went, "You know what? That's not so bad. We'll see. We'll see if I warm up to it." That's what I've been up to. Now, this weather we had, my goodness. I mean, 2 nights ago, I got up I've been getting up at 5:30. It was -16 at our house.
Minus
Mi
18 here. Yeah, brutal.
Yeah, I'm not ice fishing in that. I've done that. I I took a guy out years ago. We went to Engleville Reservoir. You can't access it with a boat because it's a reservoir. They don't let boats on it. So I ice fished it because then I had accessibility. But I had worked, we had below zero weather all week. And that's back when I was doing the heavy construction. I was out in the weather 6 days straight. I said, I worked in it all week. I'm going to play in it. And the one day I got off, took a guy with me he was an armchair sportsman, big time. And, he wouldn't even get out of my truck. And I walked around to the passenger side door and went, "You gonna get out?" He cracked the window about an eighth of an inch, and he said to me, "It's 17 below 0. That's cold enough to freeze skin." And I looked at him, and I slapped my face, and I said, "My skin's not frozen." He goes, "Well, I'm not coming out there." And he sat in the truck and watched me ice fish for 3 hours till it got up to about 0, and then with the sun out, and then he came out and he walked around and complained about how cold it was. And yeah, 17 below 0 is the coldest I've ice fished in. And I caught fish that day. Probably won't do it nowadays though. I mean, it was -16 the other day. I didn't ice fish, but we have a lot of heavy snow on the lakes. And I want to get into a little bit right now about ice fishing under those conditions. Cuz we got 16 inches of snow where I live. So, although and it was immediately followed by that Arctic cold snap that lasted, a week to 10 days. You would think that with it being that cold, man, the ice is going to be great everywhere. Well, we had about 10 inches of ice, 6 to 10 inches, most lakes. And we really needed that cold weather just to lock it in good. Problem is when you have all that snow on top of it, it insulates it. Plus, the weight of the snow pushes down on the ice. Your ice, with that much snow insulating it, doesn't really get much thicker. We needed heavy winds to blow that snow off the ice, and we just didn't get enough of. There's still a lot of snow out there. The problem is, and we saw this wherever we went. I heard people were telling me about it wherever they went. All that weight of the snow pushes down on that ice, and it's pushing down on it because there's a lot of weight there. People went out and ice fished, and whenever they cut a hole, because the weight of the snow was pushing down on that ice, the water would come up above the ice because the weight was pushing down on it so much on that water that the water would come up through the holes and it would saturate everything. So now we've got all this snow on top of the ice, and the bottom 3 inches of it is all wet and slushy. It just makes for really sloppy ice fishing. And when you cut a hole, the whole area where you are gets saturated with water. It just makes it messy. That's, and people were ice fishing for a week and bringing that water up on the ice and that slush everywhere. But when it got down so far below 0 at night with the wind, I'm hoping, I mean, the snow has melted down some now. It's compacted some. It's blown off some. We probably still have a good 6 inches of snow on top of the ice, but that doesn't insulate as well as 16. So with it being -16, -18 for those several nights, I'm hoping that it got to that slush underneath and everything is solid now. And I'll tell you what, I am going to find out tomorrow because we're hitting one of our lakes tomorrow for perch. And then 2 days later, we're hitting another one for the bluegill. And I will have reports on those excursions whenever we record our next podcast. But we've been getting a lot of good fish out there. And my son's been fishing up in New Hampshire, up in Maine, and he's been putting fish on the ice. So it is the ice fishing season. So again, be smart, be safe when you're out there, but go out and enjoy it. The weather's going to break. We're going to have a lot of days right around 30 degrees for the next couple weeks. And that's why we're getting back out there. So all my basement projects are done. I need to get out and fish. And we'll try to get my son down here for that Crumhorn event, but the scheduling is going to be tough.
I haven't heard a whole lot of feedback on the Crumhorn events from the group in the group chat. So looks like we'll be moving it anyway. I mean, you couldn't have been any less available. Jeez.
Forget March. It's going to happen in February.
Yeah, but if it's for you to go in February, it's got to be like a midweek day.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Is the only thing. You know what I mean?
Sorry.
The rest of us out here, we're not all retired.
But he could be out here for a Saturday, and I tell you what, he'll give you just as much guidance and instruction as I would, because he loves to ice fish, and we keep each other after it.
Right.
So you just need one experienced person there, and he can do that.
Well, I don't own any equipment. Neither does Ray.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
All right.
You do well with just a short jigging rod. And my son and I both have a dozen of those, if not more. So, and we can only use one at a time. So yeah, we got enough to go around. Good grief. My one rod box I carry when I ice fish carries 8 rods, and they're all little short jigging rods. Plus I got 8 more in my other box. So there's plenty to go around.
And your one-man flip over.
And my one-man flip over, and my 3-man shanty that I never use, and my Smitty sled that gets all my other box out there. So yeah, I've got gear on top of gear on top of gear. But I'll tell you what, I mean, we're right dead in the middle of the ice fishing season. We got through the end of March, most likely. But watching that Gunnersville tournament and lining up all my dates for the Spring Fishing Classic, I'm getting fired up about getting in a boat and being able to cast. And we're only halfway through the ice fishing season. And that's the thing for me about fishing is I'm always anticipating what's coming next, and half of the fun is getting ready for that. So I had a box out just the other day, when you buy brand new jigs, a lot of times they powder coat them when they paint them, where you just heat the head and dip them in the powder coat, and it creates a flawless finish, but many times it closes the line tie, that eye of the jig, it gets painted shut. And there's a little tool, cost about $2. It's called an eye out or an eye opener. It's looks like a pair of nail clippers, but it's got a little point on it. And you stick the eye of the jig through a small hole, and that point goes right through it and clears the paint. So I had a whole pile of new ones at the table, and I was clearing the paint in the eyes. So they're just ready to fish when I grab them. That's cabin fever right there, JD. Watching it be so far below zero, you don't even want to go outside.
Did you watch any of the Olympics?
I caught a tiny bit. I was watching the bass tournaments. That's my Olympics. But I did see, good grief, the downhill skiers. How fast do they go? That was insane.
80
how
miles an
fast they
hour?
go.
80 plus?
Yeah, on 2 feet in skis. How in the world do they even hold themselves in those corners? Those people are true athletes, I'll tell you that. I'd be gone in a second. Can't ski anyway. Be on my face before I got going. They should have ice fishing in the Winter Olympics. That's what they should
absolutely, absolutely should. Yes.
That's what they should have. Team USA. USA. That's what I'd be cheering for. Have guys like Gary Roach out there leading Team USA, world-class ice fishermen, Dave Getz. I mean, let's put together Team USA ice fishing team. That would be awesome.
Let's write a letter.
Let me know when the tryouts are.
They'll get right on that. I got just the guy to be the captain.
Yeah.
Captain yourself right into Roy's DMs over on Instagram at all lowercase Roy Bilby.
And as always, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate our listeners very much. I hope to see you at the Bass Pro Shops Spring Fishing Classic, because I can promise you I will be on top of that tank working lures and showing people how to tap into their angler within.